The US comedian Bill Cosby has served more than 2 years in a high-security prison near Philadelphia, but in the last few hours he's been freed. Pennsylvania's Supreme Court today quashed his sexual assault conviction on the grounds that evidence given by 5 witnesses during his retrial should never have been admitted. Cosby, now 83, was one of the most high-profile convictions of the early Me Too movement. He was found guilty of drugging and molesting the ex-basketball player Andrea Constant in 2004. The Supreme Court was told that Cosby's lawyers had secured an earlier deal with the former district attorney in Philadelphia that he would not be tried a second time because there was not enough evidence to present. Well, let's talk to Vinu Varghese. He's a former prosecutor and white-collar federal criminal defence attorney, and he joins us from New York. Thank you very much for being with us. Can I just get your initial thoughts on the news that we've been hearing these last few hours?
Well, the truth is I had been covering this case as a commentator a couple years ago when it was going on, and I had actually predicted at the time that there would be good reason for a reversal in this case. The interesting thing is the grounds on which they reversed. They took the point of having the deal that was already in place with the prior district attorney as the basis for overturning and throwing out this conviction. The other issue, which I consider the major issue, was the propriety of allowing all these other women to testify against Cosby when he was being charged with one sexual assault. So the fairness of that will live, the question of whether that was fair or not will live for another day. And this, in some sense, was a negative decision for Harvey Weinstein because he has a very similar issue in his case. So, talking to and understanding that case, that issue was not decided by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. But getting to this decision and what it shows on, it's the correct decision. There was a deal put in place that basically freed Cosby to testify in a civil suit, and that was used against him in his criminal case. Obviously something that may not be obvious to you guys, but for us as criminal practitioners was patently unfair.
We're going to hear later in the programme from Mr. Cosby's former defence lawyer, Tom Mauresmo, who represented him in the second trial. And he argued vociferously at the time that the 5 witnesses, the evidence that they gave shouldn't have been admitted because they were not eyewitnesses to the allegation that was being made in the case. So it was a classic he said, she said case, but they didn't have anything to add specifically relating to the offence that he was being tried for.
That's correct, and he was correct. I mean, Cosby's lawyer is one of the most well-known, respected lawyers, criminal lawyers in this country, and he raised those points. He raised them correctly. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court punted or decided not to take up that issue on this appeal. So, which is what a common move by courts. They will rule on the most narrow issue. And if they can make a decision on one issue, they will not decide on another issue. So that issue is still going to be litigated in not only in Pennsylvania, but across the United States as to the propriety of this, because prosecutors have been taking a more aggressive approach with these cases, particularly because of Cosby and because of Harvey Weinstein, in trying to admit what they call prior bad evidence, evidence of other bad acts that show a pattern or common scheme. But what was weird about this is this stuff going back 30 years, and you're talking about people with a lot of issues with memories, different reasons for coming forward, and it's, in the end, even a guy like Bill Cosby did not get a fair trial in America.
It's interesting what you say about the timing of this prosecution. Where do you think this leaves some of these high-profile prosecutions in the Me Too movement?
Well, because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court did not decide on the issue of whether it was proper or not to bring in all these what is called uncharged crimes or other bad evidence, it's still going to be up to the different district attorneys' offices, the prosecutors' offices, on where they go and how aggressive they're going to be. Last year, the Harvey Weinstein case, they were extremely aggressive in New York, with bringing out former testimony from other victims whose acts he was not charged for. And that case is pending on appeal, so it'll be interesting to see whether how the New York courts will rule upon that. But in terms of other things, I think until prosecutors are told by a high court that they can't do this, they're going to keep doing it, and that's what prosecutors do because they want to win. And sometimes, and particularly in sex crimes cases, the rules of evidence get tossed out the window.
Yeah, very interesting. Big implications then for other trials coming down the tracks. Vinay Varghese, thank you very much indeed for that. Just to say, we are keeping an eye on Mr. Cosby's home in Elkins Park. We don't have those pictures at the moment, but we are expecting that he's going to come out and say something. And of course, if he does that, then we will bring that to you.